So the Joker movie just came out, and to be honest, I wasn't going to see this movie because I'm not watching that many movies these days, but because of the insane press that it was getting, because of the fact that everybody was afraid of the movie, that everybody was speaking ill, especially in the mainstream media about this movie, I thought, okay, there's something else going on here. And I have to see it to understand why this particular movie is making people freak out. And so that's mostly what the movie is going to be about. I'm going to go through the Joker movie and I'm going to show you why the reason people are so afraid of the Joker movie has much less to do with the story in terms of the violence or the way that the Joker acts, but it has more to do that in the very structure of the storytelling, it breaks apart the political narratives that have been prevalent in America, and it smashes the Overton window to smithereens. This is Jonathan Pageau. Welcome to the Symbolic World. So if you haven't seen this movie, please don't watch this video because it's going to be so full of spoilers you can't believe. I'm not going to spare you at all. I'm going to go through all the elements of the movie and I'm going to show you how the decisions made by the screenwriter and the director are there to break down the prevalent narratives that we find in our culture. And that is why the movie is so dangerous to the mainstream, to the establishment, to all of this. And it has much less to do with the violence, although it is a very violent movie and it is horrifying. But, you know, the movie It just came out 2 weeks ago. And so why is it that a movie about a killer clown that kills children does not bother people? But somehow this movie about a man who becomes crazy and starts to kill people, why is it that this movie is bothersome? And it has to do with the manner in which it breaks down the current narrative. So I'm going to go through the movie and I'm going to, this is not the usual way I do things, but because the movie just came out, no time for editing, no time for fancy splicing in of scenes. I'm just going to go through the elements of the movie and break it down to help you see why it is doing what it is doing. So if you've seen the movie, you will know everything about it. So I will take that for granted as I go ahead and explain things. Now, the first thing to notice, of course, is his name. His name is great. His Arthur Fleck. And in that name, you find two interesting things brought together. One, which is Arthur, of course, King Arthur, and the other is the notion of a fleck. A fleck is something which is thrown away. It is a piece of dust, a piece of debris, which is thrown out, which is kind of flecked off. And so this notion of a fleck and Arthur is very interesting because, of course, as you have watched the movie, just like King Arthur, his origin is ambiguous. King Arthur's origin is extremely ambiguous because he is an illegitimate son of a king. And that is what you're led to believe in the story. It is that the Joker, at first, you're led to believe that he's the illegitimate son of Thomas Wayne. And then you find out that, in fact, no, that is a fiction. It's an insane fiction. And so But the Joker does in the end become this kind of kingly figure, but a kingly figure of the chaos, you could say, a king of chaos, something like that. And so the name Arthur Fleck already is a very well chosen name for what the Joker is and what the Joker becomes. So the movie begins with a garbage strike, and this accumulation of garbage in the city is, of course, just a very literal, you guys are going to catch me because I said the word literal, but a very direct image of how everything is piling up in the city, how the chaos is growing in the city of Gotham. And you see the Joker spinning this sign which says everything must go. And there you go. That's the beginning of the movie. Everything must go. And that's what this movie is about. And because it's going to break down all the narrative structures that we identify in our culture right now. And that is uncomfortable for everybody. And it's uncomfortable even for those who think that they are somehow edgy, somehow that they're the ones who are holding the revolutionary hand. But this movie has nothing to do with that. It's going to break everything apart. And so in a way, the Joker movie is the most punk rock movie that I've seen in a very long time, because it takes on everything and smashes it. So how does it do that? How does it break down the narratives? What it does is that it sets up certain situations. And the situations which it sets up are the situations which you would expect in the current political climate, in the current way that people put facts together or put elements together. And then what it does is it breaks that down. It shatters it as it's setting it up. And so that is what is making people so uncomfortable about this movie. So I'm going to give you some examples which are going to help you understand why this movie feels so dangerous to people. Now, the very first image that I can bring up for you is that there is this character, his clown friend, this bully, and they show him as a bully because he's making fun of the short person, the midget in the movie, and so they show him as this bully. And so this bully, this big, huge white guy, he's got everything you need to make him look like that bully character. He gives Arthur Fleck a gun. Now, that's what you would expect, of course, because he fits the typified image. But then the Arthur Fleck character takes this gun and he uses it. But he uses it to kill these elite kind of Wall Street types, as he calls them himself. These three young Wall Street types, looking like the Covington kids type of guys. And so already you have this problem, you have this smash, which is that on the one hand, you want to, certain political narratives will want to say, yes, of course, here's this bully type character giving him a gun, being interested in guns, but then the gun is used to kill the elites in society. And so, how do you deal with that? Because the gun ownership in the political narrative of the U.S. is seen as, the powerful who have these guns, and it's the powerful who are defending the use of guns, but now it's used in a kind of revolutionary manner. But even in that scene, again, everything it breaks down, because you see the Joker sitting in the train, and you see these three kind of young rich kids who are bullying this young lady. And so when they come and they beat up on the Joker, they beat up on Arthur Fleck, you feel sorry for him, of course. And you can, that story is typified. These three bullies kind of harassing a young lady. And so finally you think the Joker defends himself and he shoots one of the guys. And so there's this disturbing sense of catharsis in the moment. But then he not only kills the guy, but he goes out and he hunts the third guy down and he shoots him down in cold blood. It's already the narrative of the revolutionary narrative, you would say, is already broken down, because the extra step that he takes to go hunt him down, to shoot him down with a gun, and this gun is an evil thing in let's say left-leaning American narrative. The idea of killing elites is a left-wing fantasy. And so how do you jive these things together in the modern political landscape? So that breaks it down. Another way that the story gets broken down is in the very character of Arthur Fleck himself, because on the one hand, he is portrayed as someone who is poor, someone who is suffering, someone who has been abused. He is portrayed as a victim. But in the modern political landscape today, we have had all this talk about these dangerous incels and these kind of dangerous, lonely guys who are a social threat. So portraying him as a victim and at the same time having him as being this disturbing character who has become the big boogeyman of the modern world right now, it's very interesting to see. The way that people view incels today in terms of the media is very similar to the way that some racist white guy in the 1930s would have viewed African Americans. He would have thought, oh, those black people, they're going to come and get us. They're dangerous. And so we have a very similar narrative today where it's like now all these, there's an army of incels out there that is going to come and get us. And so, not that can't happen, just like violence, any kind of group that is marginalized, that is suffering, that it can happen, that violence will erupt out of that community. But, we're not yet going to have a not all incels hashtag. Maybe we should, who knows? But we see that in that element. And so another way in which all the expectations are broken is that you have this poor character, Arthur Fleck, and his mother, who's writing letters to Thomas Wayne. And so Thomas Wayne is represented as this jerk, and he looks exactly like you would expect him to. A kind of overweight, big guy, with a tuxedo, who talks about people who are not succeeding. He talks about the poor and about the marginalized in society as a bunch of clowns. And so you have the story of this lady who would have, in the past, poor lady would have had an affair with Thomas Wayne. So Thomas Wayne would have shut her up, like an abusive man in the Epstein style, would have shut her up, and she couldn't get anything from him. So she was forced to raise this young man alone. And so, it's like we have it. We've got our narrative. This is the narrative. Big, mean, rich man abuses woman, takes advantage of her. She has a child, and now this child is mentally ill, and that's the story. But then the story is broken because turns out that she's delusional, that it isn't the case, that in fact she adopted this child, and Thomas Wayne is not the Joker's father. And so Thomas Wayne remains a jerk. The things that he said at the beginning are still extremely annoying and extremely disturbing, but then he's also not he's not what the story has brought him up to be. And so the idea that somehow Arthur Fleck would want to wreak vengeance upon him doesn't have any meaning anymore. And so this narrative is broken as well. So constantly in the story, that is what we're seeing. We're seeing expectations brought up, and then those expectations being cut at the knees so that you cannot hold on to the narrative that you think the movie should have in order to justify its existence. And that is why so many people have been angry and just annoyed and can't deal with the movie itself. And so the movie is, in the story, we kind of explore this notion of not having an identity. So Arthur Fleck loses his identity as the movie is moving forward. He first discovers, he thinks that, he has these fantasies about connecting with the talk show host. He has then this dream of maybe being the son of Thomas Wayne, and all of these identities that he has are broken down. And so he becomes, in a way, the same kind of anonymous he's adopted. We don't know who his real parents are. His mother is abusing him. And so he is without any identity. He's the picture of nihilism. But the thing about nihilism is that nihilism is not on anybody's side. And that is why so many people are frustrated with it. I read a review on the Associated Press, which says, "I wish the movie thought was as radical as it thinks it is." And that's hilarious because the movie is not about radical in the political sense. And what he means by that, of course, is radical like I would want it to be. Radical in the way that I interpret reality, I interpret politics. I saw a very similar review of it on the Roger Ebert website, where they criticize the producers for not being courageous enough, not being brave enough. For example, not making the Joker character into a racist. And you think, why did they say that? Very fascinating. Because if you had made him racist, then it would have been easy to classify him. It would have been easy to say, oh, he's that kind of horrible, evil person. But no, because he's not a racist, because he falls in love with this African-American woman, then you just can't put him in a category. And that is what annoys everybody so much. And I understand it, because that is the clown, that is the trump card, that is the card that has no category, the one that can be anything that you think it is, and at the same time, none of them at all. And that is why the movie itself ends up being what the Joker is, smashing everything. Nothing, everything must go. And that seems to be what the movie is really about. And, this is me speculating, but it seems like, in a way, the movie is also a comment coming from the director. The director expressed just before the movie came out that he decided to make more dramatic movies and stop making comedies because who can make a comedy in this woke culture? And that seems to be the moments where the media really turned on him, really decided to start attacking him. And you see, there's a scene in the movie where the Joker is sitting in the couch of the talk show host. We have to understand the talk show host as this political gatekeeper. The Stephen Colbert of talk show hosts and all those other political talk show hosts, which are out there, who have somehow decided what is funny and what isn't. And you see in the Joker, he talks about the establishment, and he says, you decide what is funny and what isn't. And then he points to their cruelty. There are a few very, very powerful there's so many little tidbits in this movie that help you understand what it is that is trying to be portrayed, and how it really is this movie which is trying to break down all narratives. And the narrative, of course, is seen as that elite, the ones who are holding the story, the ones who are holding the politics. Thomas Wayne, the talk show host, those are the ones who are holding the reins. And so there's a scene where they show on television, you see him in his apartment, and it's in the background, and you see this kind of gaudy scene of African American workers who are kind of singing, and it's this kind of really bad image of these kind of black workers that are singing, and the whole cliche of the kind of poor black man who sings jazz, and the whole cliche of the shoe shining black person. All of that is there, and it's kind of disturbing to see that on the television. And you think, oh man, what is going on? And so then you think, aha, maybe this movie. There's so many scenes like that. Maybe this movie really is racist. Maybe that's what it is. And then there's another scene where the Joker walks into a movie theater, and all these people, all these rich elites in tuxedos are sitting there and watching Charlie Chaplin as the hobo, and all of them are laughing at this homeless man who is spinning on his skates. And you realize this, how much this is not so much how it really is this breakdown of everything. It really is everything must go. But the ultimate thing that I think is making people crazy is how it crosses the different narratives together and gives us something which seems impossible, but that people just can't stand to watch, which is that Joker is is this bitter incel character. But then he ends up becoming the figurehead for a type of Occupy Wall Street movement where everybody's wearing a mask. It's a clown mask instead of a Guy Fawkes mask. But you can see that it's all related to the same thing. There are little scenes in the movie where, for example, people hold up signs and it says Wayne fascist, and they have resist signs. And so here is the new bad guy of contemporary culture, this clown incel, lonely guy who lives with his mother, and he is the cause, he is the inspiration for a movement which is an Occupy movement of resistance and anti-fascist movement. And so it's like smash the two narratives together, and no wonder people cannot stand it. Now, mind you, the movie is extremely disturbing. To watch this character become crazy, to watch him kill his mother, to watch him, become this brutal character is extremely unsettling. But in terms of the actual violence, it is no less unsettling than any other movie that has that type of story in it. The movie It just came out 2 weeks ago. There are all these horror movies which usually come out in the month of October. We are in the month of October. We know this is the month for horror movies, but somehow this movie is the one that is freaking people out, and that's what it is. It really is. That's what's so unsettling about the movie, is that everything must go. The whole thing is the entire narrative, all the narratives are thrown up in the air, smashed together, and broken down, and very few people can handle that. And I understand why they can't handle it. But what it can help us see, if we're attentive, it can help us understand what kind of narratives we are attached to. What are the stories that we think are the stories which are unfolding before us? What is holy to us? And that's what a clown does. A clown is always pointing and taking apart the things that you care about. The clown is always turning things upside down. He's always making fun of the things that we hold dear. That is the role of a clown. And just because some people think that they're right and that their narrative is the only narrative, doesn't mean that there won't be a clown there to poke at it. So that's my review of the Joker, guys. If it is disturbing and it is very violent, so I'm not necessarily recommending that you go see it, but for sure, I think that it's playing a strange role in our culture. And, the Joker in the movie at some point tells his psychologist that the name of his clown act is Carnival. And so it's October, guys. It's Halloween. It's time for Carnival. Everything's going to be thrown up in the air. And this month I will be putting out some videos on Halloween explicitly. I'll be putting out some videos on specific monsters. I'm trying to get all of it together. I put out a Twitter poll to see which monsters you guys want to hear about, and they were almost all very equal. So let's see which ones I'm going to choose. I might try to do all of them, and I'll keep one of the monster videos for the patron-only video. So guys, thanks for your support. I hope you enjoyed this format. It's the first time that I do this kind of immediate interpretation format, and I will see you guys soon. If you enjoy the Symbolic World content, there's a lot of things you can do to help us out. If you're not subscribed, please do. Go ahead and share this to all your friends if you can. Get involved in the discussion. We have a Facebook group in which people can talk about these subjects. I will put all those links in the description. And also, if you can, please support us financially by going to my website, www.thesymbolicworld.com/support. And I also have a Patreon and a Subscribe Star. So thanks again, and I will see you soon.